All right, everybody, super excited to be talking about diversity, equity, inclusion tonight here with Mackenzie Fuqua. And we are going to talk through all the things that we can do to help, build and support these DEI initiatives in the mountain bike world and what our role as individual instructors are. So, Mackenzie, do you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Mackenzie. I use she, her pronouns, and that's what I like to start every clinic that I teach with, just to set those ground rules. I live in Stowe, Vermont, and I wear a lot of different hats in the mountain bike world. So I am Vermont Mountain Bike Association's DEI coordinator. And in case you don't know what DEI really stands for, it's diversity, equity, and inclusion. And my other job is at Outdoor Gear Exchange, which is the largest retailer in our state, as the outreach coordinator. And I'm also one of our certified instructors, and Travis was so wonderful to certify me with my level 2 this year. I also have a master's in natural resources that is really having to do with identity in recreation. So that's kind of my background.
Awesome. Thank you. And I'm very curious. I'd love to talk about your specialization in identity and recreation at some point during this talk, because I think that's a very interesting focus in school. I love that. So starting out, just how did you get into mountain biking?
Oh my gosh. So I grew up in Michigan, and no offense to Michigan, I love it dearly, but it's very flat. So my version of mountain biking was like, undulating, easy roller trails. And I kind of got bored of it when I was a teenager and picked it back up when I moved to Vermont after college and really fell in love with it. I was telling Travis earlier that it's kind of my summer version of backcountry skiing. So I get all of the wonderful lung capacity of going uphill and all of the joy of going downhill. And it's kind of been a huge part of my life for the last 9, 10 years now, which is great.
Yeah, it's awesome. And yeah, Mackenzie and I met, that must have just been in August. It's like mid-October right now. And she crushed it going through the level 2 course. So it was awesome. And then we got to talking about, things outside of strictly mountain biking. And that's how we came when I learned that Mackenzie is so highly qualified to talk about these things. So very excited to get through and get into this. So how did you end up in your role as like the outreach coordinator and the DEI coordinator for those organizations?
Well, it actually has to do with my educational background and the way I grew up. So I grew up in a family of academics where we had to do a lot of outreach as a part of what they did for the university. So we would do a lot of volunteer work, and part of that was creating access to healthcare for women in our community. And that kind of stuck with me. And that creating access, creating equitable access to all different facets of life carried through my college career, through my graduate degree, and into what I wanted to do with my life. So that kind of bled into the fact that I was also really interested in what drives people to do what they do, and specifically in recreation, because I love recreation. I have a big bias towards recreation. It's one of my favorite things in the whole entire world, any kind, doesn't matter. But it's so interesting to hear the drivers of people on an individual basis, but also on a social cohesion basis.
So why
Uh,
do we recreate in the outdoors?
Everyone has a different reason.
That's true. Totally.
Yeah, but it's really interesting understanding what they want and what they perceive themselves to be in terms of their recreation. And what's really interesting is that a lot of historically excluded groups, like women, like people of color, like people that are not cis white male individuals, have historically not identified as a large part of who they are as a recreationalist, whether that
Mhm.
be a mountain biker, a skier, a skateboarder, a tennis player. It's not that top 5 you use when you describe yourself.
Mhm.
And I did some looking into it and figured out it's partially because they aren't welcomed into those spaces. So I started volunteering with Vermont Mountain Bike Association and one of its chapters. And I also just kind of had that drive through all facets of my work at Outdoor Gear Exchange. And that's kind of how I happened into all of this in one little not so neat package of what I do for my day-to-day work.
Mhm.
It's a mix of passion and educational background, and also just what makes me happy.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, I think anytime, and that's part of the reason why we're all instructors, right? We love bringing new people into the activity that we're passionate about. And just so we can kind of get all on the same, in the same spot, can you define diversity, equity, and inclusion for me?
Oh gosh. There's
Or, you know,
no there's no good way of defining them all together. I mean, diversity is essentially things that are dissimilar. So, the ways that I am dissimilar from you, Travis, is that I am a female.
mhm,
Even though we're almost the same exact age, our age doesn't matter in that. We're both white, blah, blah, blah.
mhm.
So we want to see representation from individuals that are not alike to us. So equity is not the same as equality. And that is always a really big thing that surprises people. When I was in grad school, I would teach, 18, 19-year-olds about this. And there was this graphic that I absolutely loved. Equality is essentially we're both looking over the same fence at the same height, and we have that capability. But equity is maybe someone isn't the same height as you, and we're giving them that step stool so that they can view things at the same height. It's giving people the tools to do things at the same level. So that's equity. And inclusion is bringing it all together. We want everybody to feel welcome and called in and invited to what we're doing. And especially in a male dominated sport like mountain biking, it's really important to use, inclusive language, to be able to be personable. And no matter if this person seems so dissimilar to yourself that you may not relate to them, greet them with a smile.
Totally. Awesome. Thank you for those definitions and the graphic. So and getting ready for this conversation, I did a little bit of, looking online as well. And I totally stumbled across that graphic and I was like, oh my goodness, this is like an excellent description.
It's
So
my
Google,
favorite. Yeah.
yeah, it's so good. So if you want to, for all the folks out there, if you want to check it out, I believe I just found it by Google searching, DEI initiatives, or if you like DEI graphics or explained or something, I'm sure it'll pop up before too long. But I thought that
Yeah,
was,
I would
yeah,
I would say if you type in equity versus inclusion and then click Google image, it'll be like first one
boom,
right up there.
awesome, excellent. So, how long ago did you start working in diversity, equity, and inclusion? Maybe I
Well,
missed it.
so I mean, I have been working in this space, not in recreation since I was a teenager.
Okay.
Um, but in the recreation space, I have been working since I was 20. So that's 11 years now, for those that do the math. And it has been such an important part of how I have created who I am as an individual. In the past 5 or so years, it's really been solely mountain bike focused.
Mhm.
I've stopped focusing on more general recreationists or skiers and more focusing on mountain biking.
Nice. And what showed you that there was a need for increasing or like for enacting these initiatives in the mountain bike world?
I mean, look around you at any trailhead. When we're talking about diversity, like I just defined it, I look around the trailheads where I live and I see white dudes
Hmm.
in their, for lack of better word, their bra little circles, drinking some beers in the parking lot, which that is awesome. But I don't see women and I don't see
Hmm.
people of color and I don't see people that identify as non-binary or trans. And so for a while, I had a hard time finding people that I wanted to recreate with,
Hmm.
because I want to recreate with women that lift me up. And
Yeah.
so it took a while to find that space and to
Hmm.
find those people because everyone else is a white male.
Yeah.
So with that, I started working pretty hard with Vimba and with Outdoor Gear Exchange to try and make some programming to diversify and
Yeah.
start
And
welcoming
what do those
people.
programs look like? Can you talk about a couple of those?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So on the Vimba front,
Hmm.
we do a lot. And two of the bigger ones that we've been working on this year, which I'm going to take a step back for a second and say that DEI work is all small building blocks that build upon each other. So there's never going to be a large thing that you can implement, a large thing that you can change. It's all small incremental changes.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so back
That
to the
sounds like a Ruth
Vimbosphere.
Bader Ginsburg quote. Like big
Yeah,
changes happen
probably,
slowly, for sure.
probably is an
Yeah.
RPG quote. Good. I'm trying to emulate her. No.
Shouldn't we all? Right.
But a few things that we have worked on this year with VIMBA, with our DEI committee, is working on adaptive mountain bike demo days to get
Sweet.
individuals out on adaptive friendly trails, trying adaptive friendly bikes, and even getting people that have, 4 limbs that we define as working
Mhm.
on an adaptive bike to see what it feels like. It's
Yeah.
so cool. I tried one of my friend's bikes and I was just like, this is so crazy. And I feel so out of my comfort zone and so in awe of what
Mhm.
you do on this bike. So that's one initiative that we started and we are going to continue to do, especially with our downhill resorts in the state, which
Yeah.
is very
And so
cool.
then I feel like I saw something recently too about Kingdom Trails opening up some like trails built specifically for adaptive bikes. Did I misread that?
So Kingdom, to be transparent, Kingdom is not a part of VIMBA, so I don't have a
Okay.
say over what they do, but
Mhm.
the wonderful thing is a partner that we work really closely with, Vermont Adaptive, has been doing adaptive mountain bike assessments in all corners of the state, including Kingdom.
Awesome.
So they're working on just how we rank, a green, blue, black, double black. They're working on a ranking system for our state trails.
Yes.
And that is being also implemented in Kingdom Trails. There is a trail network in Richmond, Vermont, that is run by one of the VIMBA chapters, Richmond Mountain Trails, that is going to be built with the sole purpose of being adaptive friendly. So
That's
the ups
awesome.
and the downs are all adaptive. And Vermont Adaptive is a huge player in that. And we have a lot of adaptive athletes that are helping out with that. So there's just like so much happening in that world.
And you bring up a really awesome point right there. Like you're having a lot of adaptive athletes help you out with that portion of it. And so we at the BICP, we've got our adaptive instructor certification as well. We've got a couple different levels, and we just ran our first level 2 course. And in that, and this was, one of our attempts to help be more inclusive in the mountain bike world, we sponsored all of the participants, all the instructors in that course to go through it. And then they're also helping to like build that curriculum, because it's a lot of adaptive riders that are now going to be adaptive coaches. And so I think, yeah, hearing from those riders, what their experience or how their experience can factor into teaching as well as into trail building. And I think that was just like an awesome point to bring up.
It's an amazing thing, and it's wonderful that you were able to do that and able to provide that opportunity for different adaptive riders to be certified and to be a part of the whole process. That's just such an amazing experience. We are really fortunate that we have not only Vermont Adaptive, but we also have the Kelly Brush Foundation, which is an adaptive cycling foundation as well. And one of VIMBA's ambassador, Greg Durso, has hands in both of those pots. And so he is also just like a stellar rider out all the time and getting his input along with other adaptive athletes that understand trails, understand how trails are built.
Mhm.
It creates a really holistic view. And that's the whole thing with DEI work. It creates a holistic, inclusive view of whatever you're working on.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
yeah, it's super
Uh,
cool. So that's one thing that we're working on,
mhm.
adaptive mountain bike stuff. But another one that's for us a little bit of a lower hanging fruit is working on our marketing materials. So if I look at an ad and I see, a Red Bull Rampage rider, man, white, I probably won't identify with him.
Mhm.
He is not the same as I am. But if I see a woman in her 30s riding something that is closer to what I can attain, I am
Totally.
more likely to engage. So we've worked with a few photographers to get more representation in our marketing materials. So adaptive athletes, BIPOC athletes, trans, queer, non-binary athletes in our marketing materials so that people can actually see themselves
Mhm.
in what we're putting out to our membership.
And I think even, like having that happen in marketing, I think that's another way to show like, hey, like this is like like you can see yourself in these situations, and like you're it's like an attempt at like welcoming, opposed to just having all the same, professional mountain bike
Yeah,
stereotypes in those images.
for sure. And I mean, that's just in the VIMBA sphere, but in the OGE, or Outdoor Gear Exchange, we call it OGE for short, sphere, we also do a lot. So our clinics that we run through the store, we have specifically women's trans femmes clinics that are not welcome to individuals that identify as male.
Hmm.
So it is supposed to be a safe space. And then we also have BIPOC clinics that are actually paid on a sliding scale. So if there is a BIPOC person that wants to take a clinic with us and cannot afford it, they don't have to pay for it.
Hmm. Nice.
And we can also rent them a bike for free for that clinic. So that's one small piece of inviting individuals into a space that they otherwise wouldn't have access to, which is really wonderful.
Yeah, and it's great that you have the ability to like provide gear and that sort of thing too, because there is like a high bar of entry into mountain biking, like um and I think anything that we can do to like take those costs down a little bit, or at least show like willingness to work with them on that, just because you shouldn't have to be rich to have fun on a bike, out on the trails. So yeah, I think that's a really awesome initiative. And so I'm curious, with your like the BIPOC focused clinics, are you partnering with community organizations, or how does that all happen? Because I know that there's and I say this as like a cis white male, we like, even if there's something that I want to do to help, like it seems like it has to kind of come from the community, right? And like
Mhm.
me just like, hey, I'm doing this thing for people of color, isn't necessarily the best way to go about it. Have you been able to partner with community organizations, or how are you guys navigating that?
It's a hard space to navigate, to be completely frank. One way in that we've navigated it is that I don't teach any of our BIPOC clinics. We have two BIPOC instructors
Sweet.
that teach our clinics. So it is me completely hands off. We throw out advertisements to different organizations in our area that we work with a lot, like Vermont People of Color Network, like the
Hmm.
University of Vermont People of Color Outdoors Group, like even, oh gosh, I'm drawing a complete blank, but there's another organization that does some fantastic unlikely riders. They are mostly winter based, but their work is also seen in the summer with their membership. So putting feelers out to all of these community groups and
Hmm.
saying, hey, like we have this resource and we're always willing to take feedback on the resources that we provide. It's never this is set in stone. It's, oh, like this day doesn't work for like 5 of our members that really want to attend. Can you change it? We're like, sure, we'll change
Let's
it.
do it.
No problem. No problem whatsoever. So we try really hard to work with community members, which is
Totally.
great. Yeah.
Totally. Awesome. So then, okay, so let's see. What's the most challenging part about implementing these initiatives?
um, I mean, there's a lot of challenges in implementing these initiatives. The first one I would say is funding.
Okay.
There's unfortunately not a ton of funding out there for DEI work. There are some specific grants that some companies do to help with this, but you have to work very hard because DEI work is not something that you can see dividends from right away.
Hmm.
It is thoughtful programming that will make a difference down the road. So,
Hmm.
let's say, Travis, you want to invest $5,000 in the programming that we're doing. Great. You're not going to see any ROI, return on investment, for at least like another 10 years,
Hmm.
because we don't have a really good quantitative way of seeing that right now. So that's
Totally.
one issue. The other issue is that it can't move fast. So all of this change that, there's a lot of, kind of hubbub out there, like we want to see change now. All of this change has to be really intentional and
Hmm.
done with purpose. And it takes time, energy, resources, and a really wonderful group of people to make all of that happen. So that's another issue, is that, we would love to make a change right away, do everything that we want. But we have to be intentional with the work that we're doing and think about it, because
Mhm.
it's okay to make mistakes. It's encouraged to make mistakes. You should not be canceled for making a mistake.
Mhm.
But you still have to think intentionally about what you're doing. So I'd say those are the big two that at least
Okay.
pop up for us.
Yeah. And then I'm curious, like, I wonder if there, and this is just like me being curious, because I know like when I was working in West Virginia, there were grants available for a variety. I don't think anywhere like specifically for like DEI type work, the ones that I know of, but I'd be curious if organizations could get, grant funding from the state, and not being able to see the quantitative things. But I feel like there's got to be, I don't know, it'd be nice if if it didn't have to come from like me, or like private donors, just like, which if when it does, that's wonderful. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what other resources. So maybe if folks do have questions or have answers to that, send me an email, and I'd love to just like do like a follow-up thing towards the end of the year with all of the unanswered questions that came up during our talks. But yeah, any resources to support DEI work, love to hear about them to
Yeah,
everybody.
and the other thing to think about also is it's state by state of who will support you, Travis. So like in Vermont, we're very fortunate that we have a close relationship with our forest parks and recreation, and also with our federal land. So we do get some support, but a lot of, I mean, everything's underfunded. So a lot of the funding that they would want to give, they're like, oh, well, we have to put that money into revamping this trail instead of putting it to these initiatives that will get more people on the trail that we can't revamp.
Sure. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. So let's see. Okay, so what, as like who I am, 30 something year old white dude teaching mountain biking, like what can I do to help support initiatives of organizations, or just help to create more inclusivity in, my programs and that sort of thing?
Yeah. So there are a lot of things that you as a cis white man can do. The first one I would say is just listen. Do not try and like problem solve for people. Listen, be present. And people will most likely find you to open up to about their experiences as an underrepresented individual. That's
Hmm.
one easy, low barrier thing that almost anyone can do in DEI work, whether or not it is in the mountain bike space. Listen. I would also say that making sure that you're doing some homework on what you can do. So there's a lot of conflicting information out there of there are organizations that want to do the work but are asking the community members for help and guidance on what to do. And the community members are like, well, it's your job to do the research. I'm not going to give you anything. So then there's this like weird stalemate.
Hmm.
Um, do the work. Read a few books. Read White Fragility. There's some awesome resources. Like one of my favorite things this year has actually been a webinar series with People for Bikes, which is open to the public, by the way. So, and it's been fantastic information on essentially what is going on in the world, how to define things, and how to react and act to things.
Hmm.
That's been an awesome resource.
I'm going to try to find that real quick just so I can give folks an idea of where to find that. So People for Bikes DEI training
DEI
webinar,
series, potentially. Yeah.
inclusive biking, People for Bikes.
Yes.
First thing
Yes.
after I Googled that. So yeah, jump if you want to check out that webinar, uh, Google People for Bikes DEI series, and it'll pop right up there. Thank you for that
Yeah.
recommendation. I'll jump on that.
Yeah, it's an amazing series that a lot of people can learn from. I learned from it, and I've been doing this stuff for a while.
Hmm.
So those are the two things that I would really say. And then just like be intentional with your language. Don't try and use anything that is what might be, slang or short term for you that might not be slang or short term for someone else. Like I said at the beginning of this, we always start our clinics with pronouns.
Hmm.
And so that's just like easy barrier to lower to
Hmm.
understand and kind of get to know someone. So those are some easy things.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. And when the way you kind of laid them out, like listen to people, and do your homework for sure. But then like the last one is just be, it sounded like, avoiding slang terms that might make them feel excluded, like avoiding jargon. Those are things, all of those things are stuff we should be doing in every program. um
Yes.
so yeah, I mean, we just need to like amplify that a little bit. But
Yeah,
awesome, thank you for
definitely.
that. Let's see. So okay, just going through my questions real quick. Want to make sure we get them all in there. So how have you, so you've been doing this work for a little while. Have you started to see changes in the mountain bike community in your area as a result of the work you've been doing?
So we have seen some change. So to frame for people that don't live in Vermont, our state is one of the whitest states in the union, unfortunately. So we are 87-ish% white for our whole entire state. So the BIPOC diversity is harder for us, but what we can work on is LGBTQIA plus friendly programming and female identifying programming. And also inviting female identifying individuals into the fold of VIMBA. So we've seen an increase in female membership over the last few years. Unfortunately, it was really low in like 2019, 2020. It was only about 13% of our membership.
Mhm.
And it's closer to 30 now, which is great.
Yeah, that's a huge
Awesome.
increase.
It's a great increase. And that's more of that quantitative aspect, but the qualitative aspect, it's very funny. I've gone and talked to some of my male friends and they're like, I want to go on a group ride, but there's no group rides organized for me. Everything is LGBTQIA plus or women's. I don't have any male group rides because every Monday there's a group ride for ladies. Every Tuesday there's a group ride for ladies. Every Wednesday there's one for LGBTQIA plus. So scenario based, there's so many more women and people that don't identify as cis involved in the mountain bike community. It's so awesome. At OGE, we have an enduro team that we sponsor, and I think almost all of our members identify as some spectrum of queer,
Hmm.
which is fantastic. And one of our members is a transgender individual. And
Hmm.
so it's just being able to put those voices out in addition to all the scenario based observations that we have is
Yeah.
we're doing so much better than we used to. And it's
Yeah,
because we have individuals taking intentional time to do it.
for sure. And one thing that I've noticed, so we have at the BICP, we have, I believe, right around 28 instructors. And I noted, or well, and more than half of them are women at this point, which is incredible. And I was talking with Nicole about like why that would be. And it seems like we're seeing a lot more women like making power moves in the outdoor industry, like the work that you're doing. And I'm thinking like, Roxy and Joanna and all of our other like female ITs, they're all running these businesses and like making things happen in their communities. And so I think even just seeing the, how much women are, making this happen for themselves is I don't know, it's just really awesome to see those things start to change.
It's fantastic. I mean, you have to start from the group that is underrepresented. One of the other great community members that I work with a lot in both of my capacities is Pride Rides Vermont, which is an LGBTQIA plus only kind of ride center. It's one individual named Chris. He's fantastic and wonderful, but he provides programming all over our state and group rides and events and safe spaces for people to come together like women have previously and said, I want this representation. This is how we can make it happen. And he's
Hmm.
providing those safe spaces. So it's so cool to see that.
That's awesome. Yeah, and one thing that was, I think there's a tendency for a lot of folks to, think about like work with DEI as like largely like race-based. But I think it's like you've brought up a couple of really awesome points about how it's like way more than that. Even initially, like talking about age differences as well as, levels of ability and gender identity and all of that. Like it's way more than I think a lot of people look at it on its face. So I just appreciate you bringing up the full like breadth of what this can include. I love that.
It's huge. I mean, there's also like, this is a whole other topic, but the point of access for older individuals on e-bikes, which is very contentious where we are.
Mhm.
But seeing our 72-year-old friend just crush me on the climbs with a giant grin on his face is
Yeah.
one of the best things in the whole entire world. The whole reason we are in mountain biking is so that we can share our love of the sport with other people.
Yeah.
And we want to share that love as wide as possible.
Totally. Yeah, you know, e-bikes, that's another interesting thing like that can increase accessibility um and I think that it's really interesting because it has allowed me, you know, like one of my friends back in West Virginia who unfortunately like passed since, but he had like three heart attack or like three strokes, five heart attacks, like he was in like rough health, but you know, like when he was on an e-bike, he was like right on my tail, and then it made the rest of his riding even safer because he wasn't like huffing and puffing the whole time. So yeah, I think it can definitely help to include a much larger group of people. And you know, on the e-bike front as well, I picked up a couple for my parents who they're not big riders by any stretch. But now, you know, my mom will like go ride bikes with my niece, and that wasn't something that I saw happening pre her owning an e-bike, which is just wonderful. So, and
It's
she's on a
awesome.
hybrid on the roads and stuff, not on the mountain bike trails yet. My niece is
Oh,
only
yet.
4, so we'll get there soon.
Yeah,
But
soon,
yeah,
sooner rather than later.
totally.
Yeah, no, I mean, like the e-bikes, my partner was so nice as to gift me an e-bike because he's an insane athlete on the up, and that's where I struggle. So it's even creating an equitable experience in our relationship where we have so much fun riding together when I can breathe trying to keep up with him and he's not having to wait at every intersection.
Totally.
So it's a great tool, one that I think that everybody should be able to utilize in the ways that they need because it creates equitable access.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like there's so many different aspects of DEI principles that people don't really think about, including everything that we're talking about.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. So you mentioned the People for Bikes webinar. What other resources would you recommend for people looking to dig deeper into this subject?
There's a lot of resources out there. Um, One that I really love and that we work through as a DEI committee and then also as our equity committee at Outdoor Gear Exchange is something provided through Camber Outdoors, which is a DEI business alliance programming. They do something called the building blocks of DEI. And it's a short educational series, like 12 units that kind of go through the basics of how to think through a business and kind of a social setting of working through these DEI principles and the advantage of it. The great
Mhm.
thing is I can go to my boss after going through my DEI building blocks and say, oh, did you know that if we do DEI principles, we are 42% more likely to have more revenue over the next few years? How about that? So it's a nice thing to kind of weaponize yourself with all of these fantastic bits and pieces. Um, that's a really wonderful thing. I would also say um, any local organization near you. They are a great resource to just, talk to and interact with, not necessarily berate them with questions, but get to know them. And through conversation, you will learn so stinking much.
Mhm.
Um, and we also, with Vimba, have a resource library on our website. So vimba.org/DEI pledge. We have a resource um, page for all of our non-members and all of our non-chapters to kind of look through and utilize at their own convenience.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And what else do we need to know? You know, like, and I mean, there's, you know, way too many things to talk about. I
So many
acknowledge that.
things.
But like, or what did I miss in my questions?
I think so. The biggest thing is what to do after you've identified that there's a gap. And how to engage with community partners is a really hard one that I didn't go too in depth on yet, but can. I mean, pretty much all of us will look around and say there's a gap, we need to do something about it. But I usually for us, it is identifying the appropriate community partners and not asking them for help, but coming to them with wanting to elevate what they are doing.
Mm-hmm.
So a great example is with Pride Rides. We are working with them to create a inclusive ride leader training for every single VIMBA chapter. So how to use everything that BICP teaches,
Mm-hmm.
essentially all of those really wonderful things of how to do a bike check, how to make sure that we have everyone in their comfort zone and not push too far out of their comfort zone, but also taking all of our inclusion principles and packaging that into one that we can do a training with in the spring for every single chapter, which we have 29 VIMBA chapters now.
That's awesome.
So that's like a really great way to elevate the work that they are doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, to me, the best approach. The other way you can go about it instead of elevating their work is come to them with a proposal of something that you would like to potentially be a part of with funding for them to be a part of it, and ask, is this something that you would be interested in?
Mm-hmm.
If they're like, it's something kind of along the lines of what I was interested in, don't have your heart set on what you brought them. It is an
Sure.
idea. It is always an idea, and it should be, you are not the expert. They are the expert.
Mm-hmm.
Take everything that they have and work with them. But sometimes, these organizations are so underfunded and understaffed that they just don't have the bandwidth to come up with these ideas. So coming to them with them is not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. And when you're offering assistance, can that be, so I mean, I'm, speaking from a mountain bike instructor background, would it be like, hey, this is like a skill set that I have. Is this something that you guys would be interested in taking advantage of? Like, here's some, we'll do it for whatever price is free, maybe. And then this is like the resources that we can provide. And then like, is it just like, yeah, is it good to just like throw that idea out there, or is it like, hey, this is the skill set, how can you use my skill set to advantage your organization? And I can
I
re-ask
think,
that question in a less confusing way,
no,
for
it totally
sure.
made sense of like, you come to them with essentially a full proposal of this is how we can do it, with these are my skills and how I would like to utilize them for you.
Hmm.
Does that match with what you have?
Yeah, totally.
Or these are the skills that I have. How do you want to match my skills with what you need? I think it shouldn't be the first thing that you broach in a conversation with an organization that you're trying to work with. So let's say there's a organization in Minnesota that does fantastic work about inclusion of BIPOC individuals.
The
Just
Lopit,
start a
shout out to the Lopit Foundation, just
little
saying,
bit.
sorry, keep going.
Start a conversation with them. And don't put any expectations on that conversation. Just say, hey,
Hmm.
like, my name's Travis. I am one of BICP's instructor trainers. I am an avid mountain biker, and I'm really interested in the work that you're doing. And just continue that conversation. And down the road, say, are there any ways that you would like me to help? This is a way that I can help. My skill set because we've talked numerous times.
Hmm.
This is one way that I can help, but if that doesn't suit what you want, how would you like to utilize my skills? Or
Yeah.
is there someone that I can help you connect with that it has a better skill set for what you're looking for?
Hmm.
Um, it should never just be, a flat out go to this organization and say, hi, I am Travis. This is what I have to offer. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
It's like dating a little bit, just testing the waters, getting to know them before you go full send.
Totally. Yeah, you got to build some rapport, for sure. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for that. Well, let's see. Yeah, no, I appreciate all of the information, and like it's so fun to hear about the things that and how you're focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion in your area, because it is different everywhere, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, I really appreciate all of your expertise that you brought into it. And is there any other final points that you'd like to make before we wrap things up for the night?
Um, I would say if you're trying to do DEI work, don't try and silo yourself. There are other people also trying to do that work, and it's just about finding them and bouncing ideas off of them. You don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Hmm.
So talk to people. You shouldn't be trying to do programming that may exist somewhere else without knowing about what actually happened. So just collaborate. That's what the whole reason of the space is, to collaborate, to learn together. And that's what we all do as BICP instructors too. We learn together. So that's kind of the last thing that I would probably suggest.
Awesome. And so yeah, everyone go check out Vermont Mountain Bike Association's website. Could you give us that URL again?
Yeah, vimba.org/DEI pledge.
Awesome. And yeah, check out some of the work that Mackenzie's been getting up to. And I'm sure that the OGE has some photos posted about clinics and stuff and all that. So
If you go
definitely
to,
take a peek.
yeah, if you go to gearx.com and go to Everyone's Wilderness, that takes you to all of our DEI work and all of our charitable giving that we do.
Awesome. And then, yeah, you can start to build off what Mackenzie has done and then continue to take it further. Awesome. Well, we touched on so many things, but, you know, kind of the big things that stood out to me. Let's see. You know, the three things that we can do: listen, do your homework, and there was the third one. Watch, you know, language and use inclusive language during our clinics. Those are those really stood out to me. Well, yeah, and I just I got so much out of it, and I just love like learning more about these things, because it's taking intentional steps, like, you know, watching this video and talking with you, that we can start to make mountain biking truly for everybody, because that's the goal, because the more people mountain biking, the better, for sure.
Yes, that is for sure.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to wrap the recording up real quick, but thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you next week. We are talking about the in-depth what goes into hosting a course for the BICP. So definitely check that out next week, and we'll see you guys later. Thanks again, Mackenzie.